because when it came to the scene where Bonnie left, in the script it was very perfunctory. Bonnie leaves, and I said, well, she can't, there's got to be a scene, there's got to be some reason, you know, she's the Doctor's companion. You know, she was Colin's companion, but it was the same Doctor as I. You know, she's been his companion for quite some time.
There had to be some emotion to it.
Yeah, there was some emotion, and that was it. And I remember that, you know, scene that I did for the screen test, and so I asked for that, and we got it. We only got half of it. It could have been longer, I think, but anyway.
Actually, I think if you look at the original, I think we've got it all in there.
Oh, did we?
Yeah. You might be remembering because you did a couple different scenes, because you did the one with the Iron Woman, do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, which I also wrote. Good scene. We sort of, in a way, the Happiness Patrol was like a feature-length version of that.
Yes, yeah.
But the thing is, Sylvester really killed in those scenes in the audition. He did them so well. And I'm delighted because you guys know the public never saw those, so this was a way of sort of doing one of those scenes for a larger audience. That was brilliant.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was very nice of you to say that, but also at the same time, the powers that be above our producer, John Nathan Turner, weren't too convinced that I would make a good Doctor, and so he had to prove to them I would. So what he did was he got 3 actors, I was one of them, and the other 2 actors are very good actors, but they were totally wrong for Doctor Who. There was no way they could actually be Doctor Who. Anyway, so he cheated, and so therefore the only person that actually came out of it who could be a Doctor Who was me. You know, so it was a bit of a cheat, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like when they did a card trick and they know which card you're going to get to. It's called the forced card, so that's what they did. And thank God, because as soon as we saw Syl, we knew that we had to have him. He was fantastic.
Thank you. I don't like the past tense. I'm joking. But there's a person there.
What do you think about having another Scottish Doctor in the role? With Capaldi?
I think you can't have too many. And you got Syl, you got David.
He's keeping the accent.
No, and I think it's brilliant. They're a particularly strong strain. And I always say, when I'm asked to choose my favourite amongst the new Doctors, I always tend to choose David, and I say, he's another great Scottish Doctor, along with Syl.
But the thing about David is that, in fact, he didn't do a Scottish accent.
I know he didn't do it.
No, and I got a phone call from some papers in Glasgow one day, just when it was announced, and they said, "Oh, hello there, Sylvester. Have you heard? He's not doing a Scottish accent. Oh, we're all upset. What do you think?" And I thought, oh my goodness, what do I say? Because, you know, it's not up to me. Yeah. So, I mean, what I said was, well, the thing is that he can do a Scottish accent. That's easy for him. He's a Scot. To actually plumb for an English accent, it was an estuary one as well. It was a kind of a Tony Blair kind of accent, you know, kind of posh, but with a bit of working class in it. That's called an estuary accent. He was proving his, you know, his worth, how good an actor he was. And also, I went on to joke about the fact that one of our great actors, Sean Connery, I mean, every film he ever did, he had the same accent. And so,
Russian, you look man.
Yes, I am a Russian. Then of course they made the Highlander. I mean, that was accent's gone mad. I mean, the Highlander. I am a Highlander. I come from the Highlands of Scotland. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm a Highlander. I don't know how to speak with a French accent. And then on comes Sean Connery. Oh yes, I am a chap. Oh yeah, you were a Russian or the same one. And then they get, well, he plays an Irishman in Untouchables, and they give him an Oscar. I am an Irishman. I mean, that's a disgrace. He's Scottish. I mean, it's easy for the Scots to do an Irish accent. We know we're cousins, as it were.
That's true. He played an Arab sheikh, and he did it as Scots actor. But you see, I admire that because I think it's better that somebody should stick with their own accent than do a dodgy version of somebody else's accent. Because often on British radio, I always cringe because when they do a play which features American characters, so often their American accents are terrible. I just shudder and cringe. So better to stick with your own accent, no matter how inappropriate it is, than to do a bad one.
Well, to tell Meryl Streep that.
Do you think that her accents are bad? I mean, what do you reckon?
No. I know she's famous for doing various different accents. does it really well. No, so, I mean, you know, those that can should, and those that can't should stick to Sean Connery. You know, we should all. Yes, I am the Doctor. Yes, exterminate. Yes. Oh, that's another thing that upset me, because when they actually moved, you know, Doctor Who from London to Cardiff, which is great. You know, the principal writer, the principal producer was Welsh, and he was bringing work to Cardiff, and that's absolutely brilliant. Then Stephen Moffat, who's a Scot, when he got the job, I thought, oh great, he'll move it on to Glasgow. The Daleks will be frightening. I am a Dalek, exterminate Jimmy. It's terrifying with a Scottish accent. I'm that accent together. He'll conquer the universe easily. So, I mean, it's still, exterminate, boy, exterminate. You know, it's the Welsh one, isn't it? Oh, you do, boy,
what I wrote down in my diary at the time when I first met Syl during the auditions, and I wrote it in my diary and I put it in my book, which I'm not trying to sell because it's sold out now. But I wrote but what I said, my first impression of Sylvester was that he was like a living kind of Bugs Bunny character, physically, with the voice of Richard Burton, who is the greatest voice in British drama. And it's true, and I remember when Sophie was in that glass tank filling up with water and it cracked and disaster was about to happen. There's this enormous, powerful voice yelling, "Get her out of there!"
That's broken. Jim shouting into it. Next question, please. In the slow black Kodak fish with bobbing sea.
Can you tell us your experiences working with Bonnie Langford?
Great. I mean, it was lovely to work with Bonnie because that, in a way, segued me into the role. Because I'd worked with Bonnie before in a musical version of Paris à Penzance for a year. It was a very hugely successful production in London. And I married her every night and twice on Saturdays. So I knew her quite well, really. So that was lovely to arrive and have someone who was a friend in there. It was a bit scary, especially with Kate O'Mara, who was at that time huge. You know, she was worldwide, and a brilliant actress. I mean, in Britain we knew her for other work, theatre work, which she did wonderfully well. So I was a bit scared of that, but Bonnie helped out. And then when Kate played Bonnie, well, that was it. It was just hilarious.
The thing that really struck me about Bonnie is that she was so different from the character she played. Like, Mel was all these strange kind of, you know, candy girl outfits. And Bonnie wore stuff from Boy, which was sort of the punk shop in London. She was utterly different. And I always felt that she got dealt with so much with shorthand because Mel wasn't a very interesting character and had been conceived as a computer scientist and a very bright character, quite interesting, but then rapidly just became another screamer. So I always felt that Bonnie didn't achieve her true potential, which is a shame, because she was terrific, and the character was potentially very good too.
Yes, no, it was...
Just one other thing, Stephen Wyatt. Bonnie's been reading some Doctor Who adventures, and she's fantastic in those.
Yeah, I'll tell you what's happening now is that the lights are all connected between another couple of rooms. So when they're showing films in the other room and they turn it down like now, it's because they're showing something and they just want, and then, so it's madness. Either that or it's Bonnie looking over us and going, we love Bonnie. Bonnie's great. She wasn't very lucky with that. The bow tie.
I wanted to ask, the Doctor usually is compared to other literary characters, like Sherlock, classic ones. When you acted it and when you wrote him, did you take any inspiration from a classic character or another character like that?
Well, I'll start by answering that. I've often said, although I didn't sit down and conceive this at the time, when I'm asked to try and sum up what the Doctor should be, the guy who keeps coming to mind, the hero that keeps coming to mind, is the Lone Ranger. And the reason for that is that the Lone Ranger rides into town, sorts things out, rides out of town, but you never learn too much about who he is. He's the mysterious figure, he's the mysterious hero, he's the good guy, but he's got to be an enigma at the beginning and at the end. So I'd say the Lone Ranger.
Oh, right, that's why I ended up on a horse. Well, yes, no, I mean, I suppose Sherlock, it comes to mind, and the British kind of superheroes who are all, use their brains rather than the bronze. They don't put their underpants outside the trousers. It's just part of that tradition, I think. There's a debate about whether it should be a woman soon or not. And that one's an interesting debate, but the thing is, he's a Time Lord. And that's the problem, really. But maybe someone will write something.
But he's so much more than a Time Lord, Sylvester.
He's a Time Lord, lady. Lady Lord. He's a transvestite.
Jason, did you have another question?
I was just wanted to ask more about Bonnie and stuff like that. If she had stayed on another year, would you have changed some stuff with her character any, or made some other alteration?
It would have been difficult because she was already painted into a corner and she was expected to behave in a certain way.
To you, which actor has played the best Doctor besides you? Which actor has played the best?
Which actor's played the best?
Which actor has most represented the Doctor?
Well, that's a very difficult one, really. I mean, of the modern Doctors, Christopher Eccleston arriving on the scene blew everyone away, and we launched Doctor Who into another stratosphere, really. So he was great. But then David is a wonderful Doctor. Because I worked with David before that, and he played a Nazi with a Scottish German accent. He was rather good at that. But then I heard that they were casting a 12-year-old. I said, no, you can't do that. No, the Doctor's got to be older. You've got to be not younger. But I was wrong. When I saw Matt Smith, he was just amazing. His face, his whole thing. He is 950 years old. I'm totally convinced he is. And with a young body underneath. But he's a lovely man. I met him for the first time last year while we were filming the Five-ish Doctors reboot. And he's just like, he reminds me of an Afghan hound. Big puppy, he comes running up, his tail's wagging, his paws on your shoulders, he licks your face. He's a delightful young man. I was really bowled over by him. So those three, how can I choose between all three of them? They're all got amazing things. And then the early Doctors, I suppose Patrick Troughton is the first Doctor I saw, and that tends to be, your favourite, the one that sticks in your mind. He's the one that attracts you to the piece, so he would be the one, really.
Well, since you said, excluding Sylvester, my favourite is absolutely Troughton, and it's interesting the similarities because they both have that impish, clownish quality and that ability to be absolutely serious, quite primitive and almost a little bit scary, and I just love that. I think Troughton's unbeatable. But taking very close behind it, Tom Baker is an amazing Doctor, really great. And amongst the modern ones, I felt the same thing that Sylvester did about Matt Smith, because the Doctors were getting younger and younger and younger, and we were heading towards a Bieber kind of Doctor. but as soon as I saw photos of Matt Smith, if anybody's ever seen the movie The Man Who Fell to Earth with David Bowie, he had that same kind of thing. He just looks alien. So he actually has that wonderful. But I thought it was great that they got Capaldi to kind of reset that, because he's considerably older. The fascinating thing is he's older than Hartnell, which is an astonishing fact. So they were very clever to go from Matt to Peter Capaldi. But amongst the modern Doctors, I would say Tennant, and partly because Tennant and Prima Agneman was such a great team. I thought they were one of the great Doctor companion teams of all time.
Yeah. Apart from Sophie and I.
This question was accepting Sylvan and Sophie, obviously. Eric.
Were there any episodes while you were filming them that confused you?
Every one of them. Well, there are some confusions. There's the cliffhanger, the infamous cliffhanger.
Dragonfire?
I know everyone kind of confused, but I thought it was quite clear, really. I was just trying to climb down.
The thing is, in the script, for instance, in Dragonfire, it's a poltergeist. We can talk about ghost sightings.
Oh, yes.
I was never confused about anything because we knew what was intended, but the thing is, it's then handed over to the production team to mock up. So, for instance, in Dragonfire, it's all totally clear that Sylvester reaches a point where he's coming down the ice face and the trail ends and he has to climb. But the way that's shot, thank you, Chris Clough, is completely baffling. But certainly the show that confused other people the most was Ghostlight. That was the most complicated one. And, and I remember when we sat down to discuss it with the actors, there was the read-through and the writer was there, and all the actors, one of them said to him, "Oh, Mark, what have you been sprinkling on your cornflakes?" So it was such a wild, wacky script. But because I've developed it with Mark, I understood everything. The trouble with Ghostlight is twofold. There's a complex backstory, and the other big thing about Ghostlight is a character called Control, who people think is the boss and is in control, but in fact, she's an experimental control, which means something completely different. So that's the confusion there. But also, Survival also has quite a complex story about how you jump from, what enables you to jump from world to world. I remember writing like a 2-page document to try and explain to the production team how all this worked. So the answer is, I and the writers were never confused, but once we handed it over to the poor people who had to make the shows, confusion often reared its lovely head.
Yes, no, Ghostlight was a bit confusing, but great at the same time. It was great. The scenes, I thought, he wrote wonderful scenes for Sophie and myself, and it was very enjoyable to do.
Fantastic dialogue, you guys.
Yeah, that's right. It was great dialogue, so it was good to do. But if you find out what it's all about, do let me know.
I'm actually running a competition on Twitter for people to sum it up in 140 characters or less.
That'd be great. Next.
So you mentioned the Five-ish Doctors reboot. I understand there is a sequel in the works. Can you give any details about that?
No, I can't really, because I saw Peter about 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. And what he said was he would love to do a sequel, but he'd have to get it's the story. How do you... And then, the thing is, it was done with no money. It was for love, really, love of the fans. We all wanted to do it to celebrate the 50th anniversary the way we thought the fans would like it to be. And that's why we did it, really. But you couldn't repeat that again. I mean, you couldn't get Ian McKellen in it again, or Peter Jackson for nothing. They just did it for a laugh, and, because they liked the idea. So that's the difficulty, doing a next one. So I think it's, I might be wrong, maybe Peter's announced it since, but my impression was that he would love to do another one, but, how do you do it? There's no way. Okay, we could ask you to send us in loads of money so we could employ people. Because I know we'll get paid at all for doing it, so it's a difficult one.
Well, it was brilliant. It was brilliant.
Oh, thank you. Yes, no, it was. I thought Peter Davison did a wonderful job on it. He wrote it, directed it, produced it, and it was all, his humour. It was great. Do you think so?
Brilliant.
Yeah. No, it was. He did a wonderful job.
You're like just having a chat here. Excellent. Thank
The
you.
lady in red. Lady in red!
Someone asked what you thought was the best episode, your favorite. What was your least favorite episode that you did?
That's easy for me because when I arrived on the show, there was imposed on me a story I didn't want to do, whereas after that I chose all the writers and developed the stories. So I didn't have a happy experience with the first one, which was Time and the Rani. So that's my least favourite for that reason. But I was very inexperienced as a script editor, so if I was stuck in a situation like that today, what I should have done, looking back, is I should have seen the first Rani story and made a bunch of notes, and I should have gone to the Pip and Jane Baker and said, "Oh, you're geniuses, I love this story," and come through with it, and tried to win them over. Having said that, they were quite difficult people to win over. So that strategy might have failed just as badly as my other strategy, which was trying to make them write good. So for me, my least favourite is Time and the Rani, just because I didn't like the script, and if you haven't got the script right, nothing else works for me. And also I thought it was the first one out of the gate, introducing Sylvester to the world, and I thought it should have been the best story we ever did, and I didn't think it was our strongest story.
Yes, well, I suppose difficult to choose which one really.
Because they're all so bad.
No. Okay, yes. No, it's difficult really. I mean, because I remember the one, what was it, Paradise Towers, is that the one where it was kind of weird? I mean, I loved what it was about and all that, but there was bits in it where I thought, oh, these ladies, cannibals, who were eating Bonnie Langford, and I couldn't get my head around that, because Bonnie's the skinniest person you ever met. They could have gone for someone fatter, you know, I think it was so, why are they so, maybe she's just like frog's legs or something like that, you know, something very special. But, that kind of confused me. What else? I don't know really. There's just moments, there's different reasons why. When I was doing the what's it, the one in ice, the ice world, Dragonfire, I filmed previously in the Arctic up in Baffin Island for about 5-6 weeks, and I knew what it was like to work on snow and ice. So I was, you know, an experienced ice actor, as it were, and so I was doing my ice acting all over the place, and then when I watched it, everyone was just walking about as if they were in Harrods shopping. You know, there was nobody sliding, there was no... And that really upset me, I thought. And also upset me, the director didn't say to me either stop doing it or telling everyone else start doing it. And make it uniform. So there was... I mean, when I watched them, it's kind of think, I don't like that. Why did they do that? And I suppose in that one also, the monster was a bit weird. It was a skinny man.
The story about the monster, which was brilliant in conception and design, was that they designed it for this guy in the special effects department to wear the suit, and he was like 6'7" and really skinny. But television being what it is, and human nature being what it is, when they came to cast the part of the guy in the monster suit, one of the producers' old buddies was out, and he was short and fat.
Yeah. So it kind of looked weird. You know, odd things like that, they kind of annoy you. But there was also the one in Survival with the cat, which I thought was... Because it was supposed to be, you know, they got a real cat. It was supposed to be a theatrical cat, you know, experienced equity member. And it was just like an equity actor. As soon as he got the job, it ran away. That's what happened. They opened the cage and it disappeared, didn't it? It just vanished. And so they were left with an animatronic cat, which was only supposed to be a split second. It had been made just for a split second, but they had to film it longer because that's the only cat they had. And it was like this cat going...
that cat was a nightmare, and the problem was, they were talking about how we're going to do the cats in this, because obviously cats are much more difficult to train than dogs, because they don't mind and I'm a cat person. And so they were discussing the possibility of an animatronic cat. And the thing was, the terrible thing was, the producer had just seen this really good animatronic dog on television. And so he was talking to the head of the effects team and said, oh, can we do an animatronic cat just like that dog? And the effects supervisor wasn't going to say, oh, my boys can't do that. So he said, sure. But the problem was, dogs are on the whole much bigger than cats. And this animatronic dog was 2 or 3 times the size of the cat. So you can't get all the mechanism in there. So the animatronic cat was a bad idea from the start. And then we got it out and its fur was orange. It was just a nightmare, guys. And there's this English comedian called Harry Hill, and he's got this really cheap, cheesy puppet cat that's not supposed to look real called Stuffer. And it was just like Stuffer was in Doctor Who. It was crazy. So yeah, that was bad. But that's within the context of this being a great, brilliantly written, brilliantly acted story, and well directed too.
Yeah, no, it was one of the best, I think. The writing was great, and it was great that it was a female writer, because that really excited me.
And Scottish.
And she's now a well-established writer for theatrical plays. She's a highly respected writer for the stage. My writing is terrible. Yours is good. Great. Eric again.
Do each of you have, I've always been fascinated by John and Nathan Turner. Do either of you have an interesting story about Turner during your years there?
I always say that, I mean, John's had a lot of bad press, and so I tend to defend him. He was volatile, and he could lose his temper, and I saw the bad side of him a lot of times. But basically, he was a very nice, warm-hearted person, despite being, an explosive temperament. And also, the big thing about John Nathan Turner was he was willing to give new talent, untried talent, a chance. Almost nobody does that. And although we did argue over things and differences, and he made decisions that I thought were wrong decisions, none of us could have done anything if John hadn't hired us. I was unknown, he hired me. Sylvester was a dark horse choice, because as he was saying, that the higher-ups of the BBC couldn't believe that he was going to be as good as he was in the role. So John would just, he was a gambler and a risk taker, and he did recognize talent. So I wish television had like 50 more producers like him, frankly.
I agree. Yeah, no, he was. We got on really well, John and I. He made me laugh, and I made him laugh. And I very rarely saw the bad side. I'd heard, you know, that there were kind of negative things, you know, that it could be hard on people or something like that, but never with me. It went on really well. And so I've got nothing but praise for the man. He employed me. And here I am now. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him.
Chris.
Andrew, I was reading the book that you were talking about survival of the cat, that the effects team made a dead cat. It was too realistic.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah, that's the trouble. They either did things too well or not well enough. So, yeah.
They went to a butcher's shop and had a dead cat.
Do you know, they stuffed it with guts and stuff. Oh, that was, I don't know. Yeah. And it was a very hot day, that shoot.
Yes, again, that was the desert of Dorset, as I said. It was 400 degrees. Yes.
Is there anything that, you know, that you guys did that was distinctly British that maybe you've just been completely lost in American audiences?
Everything.
I was going to say that. But I was joking, he means it. No, don't know really. You'd have to tell us. I mean, how do we know? I mean, how would we
Well,
judge?
is there anything that you guys thought was just absolutely seminal or brilliant that, you know, you maybe had your British audiences catch and like, oh, that was, but American audiences just
There was probably more people watching it in America than in Britain at the time, because they're putting us out against Coronation Street, which is like the biggest, most popular show on television. They grew really badly scheduled. So if there were things that got lost in the cultural divide, I should have thought there'd be things to do. I've got one. They're to do with language. And in Paradise Towers, there's these kid gangs called the Kangs, and they're all named after things in this broken down urban environment. And so I remember one of the actors is saying, oh, my boyfriend's so proud of me because I'm playing a character called Bin Liner. And that's great, but you see, you guys mostly wouldn't know what Bin Liner is. Bin Liner would be garbage bag over here.
Well, that's quite a good name for her as well, actually.
Yeah, so I suspect things like language things would be the thing. Dylan in the back?
What was it like working in a story where a Dalek got blown up by the power of rock and roll? I got that confused. Sorry. I'm mixing up stories and Doctor Now.
that's okay.
Come back later when you've worked it out.
But we did love blowing up Daleks. We had a great time doing it. In fact, they called the police. We had such a good time.
Yeah, I mean, what happened was we were filming under the Waterloo Bridge, the arches under Waterloo. It was the 60th anniversary of the Easter Rebellion in Ireland. The IRA were very active in London at the time. And so everyone expected some bombs to go off somewhere on Easter Monday, the day we did it. Of course, the Pyrotechnic boys were always trying to blow everything up. But
They were always getting very enthusiastic. They always give you 110% with the explosive.
I know. I experienced a lot of that too. And so this day, there's a big battle going on with the Daleks under, you know, the arches, and suddenly a huge explosion. Cars' alarms go off all down the street. Car windows and buildings crack. Everything, the noise, it's on the radio, it's on Capital Radio. The IRA have let off a bomb under Waterloo Station. Ambulances arrive, fire engines arrive, the police arrive, noise, cacophony, sound, smoke. And I was standing here and the smoke was coming out the side there, and an ambulance came down with a fire engine, and the ambulance screeched to a halt, and the ambulance driver's jaw dropped to his chest, because out of the smoke came 3 Daleks. Irish accents, exterminate. Oh, that was it. You remember that? It was amazing. There was another time where the Pyrotechnic boys blew up the Daleks. We were in a storage place for ITV, the opposition. It was there, a storage place, and there was a big gate, and they made the gate sort of explode, and behind it was as if the Daleks had blown the gate off, and they come through. So they did, and this huge explosion went off, and then when the smoke cleared, the Daleks had all melted. Luckily there was no one inside them working.
Just talking about explosions, there's a fantastic one in Greatest Show in the Galaxy, where they're blowing up the bad guy's den. And we could only do one take of it. And Sylvester had to walk away, because he's brought this explosion about. He has to walk away, the tent has to explode behind him,